Chu Zheng ground his teeth and opened the communication channel. Gao Changkong, are you planning a rebellion? Gao Changkong smiled profoundly. No, this is a revolution. Chu Zheng was so angry he nearly smashed his desk. The staff on the first floor were stunned. Although they had armed defense forces, with the current strength, how could they possibly engage the entire cycle squad? The consequence could only be death. But they couldn't just stand by and watch Gao Changkong lead people to break through the defense line. The situation fell into a stalemate. The guards at the gate raised their guns, their faces hesitant, fear having completely enveloped them. At this moment, a calm voice rang out from the crowd. All right, leave this to me. Everyone looked towards the voice and saw Wu Zhenghang from the security department step out. Manager Wu Zhenghang walked up to Gao Changkong. Everyone was nervously watching him. Wu Zhenghang took a remote control from his pocket and deactivated the security mode of the first floor and the elevator doors. Everyone watched wide-eyed. They couldn't believe that this dedicated manager would do such a thing. Was he helping the cycle squad rebel? A fortress is always broken from within. No matter how powerful the defense measures of the operations command center were, they couldn't prevent the betrayal of those in charge of security and defense. Gao Changkong smiled at Wu Zhenghang. Thank you. I will fulfill the promise I made to you. Wu Zhenghang nodded silently and then ushered the members of the cycle squad into the elevator. This scene left the high-ranking officials staring at each other in shock, mouths agape. Chu Zheng was so angry he couldn't control himself. So, he was an inside man too? Wu Zhenghang. He betrayed Snowstorm City. That bastard. I wasted my trust on him. Lan Xincheng comforted Chu Zheng. Commander Chu, we have 3 layers of defense. No need to worry. When the city's defense forces arrive, we can definitely control them. For now. For safety. Let's hide. The high-ranking officials of the command center had helicopters ready for special moments like this. Chu Zheng's face was cold. He thought to himself, Zhang Yi and Tu Yunli have both been deployed away, leaving the inside incredibly vulnerable. All of this must have been planned by Gao Changkong long ago. Thinking deeper, it was almost certain that the entire Shiyue event was Gao Changkong's plan. Truly hateful. No, I can't leave here. Chu Zheng sat down firmly, his eyes sharp, his hands clasped on the desk. I am the commander of the Jiangnan division. I absolutely cannot hand over the command center to a traitor. Immediately issue an order for all city defense forces to come and eliminate the traitors. Chu Zheng showed no signs of panic. He quickly analyzed the relative strength of the enemy and his own forces. Although the 2 strongest forces were deployed and couldn't return quickly, it didn't mean Snowstorm City had no defense. The 300 standing defense forces, along with armed departments at all levels, all had extremely powerful mutants. Even the bodyguard, Sun Luxuan, behind him and his secretary, Lan Xincheng, were leaders among mutants, experts in the field. He could fight a fair battle with Gao Changkong right here. At the same time, a question lingered in his mind. Gao Changkong, the sports hero once known nationwide, why would he collude with those Nihong thugs and betray the Jiangnan division? Lan Xincheng quickly advised, but your safety is the most important thing. If something happens to you, what will become of Snowstorm City? What will become of the Jiangnan division? But Chu Zheng said resolutely, run. Where could I run to? I'm not going anywhere. I'll stay here and see what they can do to me. Lan Xincheng was visibly anxious. Having no other option, he shouted loudly. Go into level 1 alert. Spare no expense for strict defense. Absolutely do not let them reach here. News of the Cycle Squad's rebellion quickly spread throughout the armed departments and major organizations in Snowstorm City. Ordinary citizens were kept unaware of the upheaval. This was to maintain stability for the time being. Instantly, the atmosphere in Snowstorm City became extremely tense. The Yanyun Legion, the defense forces, and the private armies of some major powers all began to converge on the command center. They absolutely could not allow Gao Changkong to kill Chu Zheng, because if Chu Zheng died, the hard-won order established in Snowstorm City would collapse. Aside from them, the Yanyun Guard led by Tu Yunli also received the news. Tu Yunli's eyes widened. They had just finished dealing with the abyssal demons, and both he and his subordinates were heavily depleted. Furthermore, this place was far away. Even if they returned now, it would take over an hour. But he didn't hesitate at all and said, everyone assemble immediately. Return to Snowstorm City and suppress the rebellion. The Yanyun Guard quickly boarded helicopters and headed towards Snowstorm City. Meanwhile, after Zhang Yi heard the news, he only murmured to himself, did I really guess it right? He was somewhat surprised, but not overly so. After the apocalypse, he had seen too much of human nature. Betrayal had become normal. Nothing surprising. Everyone was just pursuing their maximum self-interest. He only had one issue to consider. How would this affect him? Inside the operations command center in Snowstorm City, the slaughter had begun. Gao Changkong led the cycle squad, advancing floor by floor up the 16-story building. Each floor was heavily guarded, including powerful mutants. Even the weakest defense forces were elite, fully armed warriors in black armor. But all of this seemed too weak before the cycle squad. Snowstorm City's top fighting force. Gao Changkong maintained a composed expression, his arms crossed. with no intention of attacking himself. The one doing the fighting was his deputy leader, Ji Yushin. Ji Yushin was a mutant with a special ability codenamed Ghost Blade. Information about his ability was scarce, only that he could summon a large blue sword from thin air, and this sword could easily cut through armored vehicles. Ji Yushin led the way in the formation. Stepping closer to the command room, heavy footsteps echoed like an earthquake in the corridor ahead. Hundreds of soldiers completely blocked the corridor, forming a wall. The leader, a Yanyun Guard major, spoke through his cold mask. Cycle squad, retreat immediately. Without the commander's order, no one is allowed to enter here. Ji Yushin gripped the large sword, over 2 meters long, in his hand and said coldly, "Don't you understand the situation yet?" As soon as he finished speaking, his body shot forward like a lightning bolt. "Kill!" The Yanyun major waved his hand. The soldiers behind him formed a formation, holding large explosion-proof shields in front, while the soldiers behind them raised their guns and fired. The bullets rained down, but the large sword in Ji Yushin's hand only needed a light swing in the air to send the high-speed bullets flying back like plastic toys. The explosion-proof shield, made of alloy, was instantly cut in half. Dozens of Defense Force soldiers were killed with just one strike. Mutilated bodies and fresh red blood dyed the corridor. Swish. In the corridor, streams of laser light formed a dense net, covering the cycle squad. Ji Yushin held the large sword in his hand, pointed it directly at the wall, and quickly swung it upwards. A series of sword slashes swept through the air. The originally sturdy wall was cut open like tofu. The laser weapons inside were also completely destroyed. In the command center, Chu Jing sat upright in his chair. Watching the surveillance footage of the cycle squad, a group of defense forces and Yanyun guards charged forward, trying to block their path, but the disparity in power was too clear. Gao Changkong hadn't even made a move. Just a few mutants under his command were enough to clear all obstacles. "Stop them! Stop them for me! Absolutely do not let them reach the command center. Where are the reinforcement forces outside? Why haven't they arrived yet?" Lan Chencheng gave orders loudly over the radio. Sweat was beading on his forehead. For the first time, he felt the danger of death. Even with the apocalypse having arrived long ago, he, as one of the leaders of Snowstorm City, had never thought he might die. But the cycle squad's step-by-step approach made him feel the threat of death for the first time. Over the radio, the leaders of various units reported, "We'll be there immediately. Please rest assured, Commander. We absolutely will not let the rebellious forces harm you." Guman noticed the reinforcement forces from outside were flooding towards the building. The blaring alarm sounded closer. They were getting nearer. She chuckled softly, raised her right hand, and flicked her finger. Just as the support units neared the building, they suddenly saw a giant black cube appear around the building. The entire building was covered by the black cube. This was Guman's barrier. The cycle squad's Guman. Her ability is of the projection type, named Barrier. A worried-looking officer leading the troops exclaimed, "Her barrier-forming ability is terrifying. The barrier she creates is also extremely difficult to break, unless it's a mutant with offensive power much stronger than hers. But currently, most mutants of that level in the city have left. Only one person remains, the bodyguard beside Chu Jung, Sun Luxian. But in this situation, Sun Luxian must constantly protect Chu Jung's safety. Break this barrier for me." A large number of soldiers gathered outside began trying to break the barrier using explosives. A dense barrage of bullets was aimed at the black barrier, and they even used explosive measures, but the black barrier was like diamond. It didn't budge. The commotion here sent the entire Snowstorm City into chaos. What's that sound? Are they fighting? How can there be gunfire in Snowstorm City? What's happening? The citizens were extremely panicked and afraid, but they could do nothing but frantically flee, praying that they wouldn't be affected. Inside the operations command center, Ji Yushin, alone with his sword, cleared the path. Any kind of defense or trap was cleared by him. With the defensive terrain map provided by Wu Zhenghang, they easily avoided many troubles and directly advanced towards the command center where Chu Jung was located. "Stop. You can't go any further." A mutant blocked their path. He spread his right hand, instantly conjuring 10 red barrier walls in the walkway. Ji Yushin sneered, revealing his white teeth, and then calmly walked towards the front, holding the large sword step by step. Useless. 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 Each time he swung the large sword, he easily chopped through a barrier wall. The disparity in strength was too great. The mutant responsible for defending here simply couldn't stop the members of the cycle squad. Soon after, in despair and horror, he was killed by Ji Yushin. Gao Changkong looked at the scene before him and murmured, "Killing is not my intention, if possible. I only want to take Chu Jung's life and then rebuild the order of Snowstorm City. But since ancient times, revolution requires bloodshed. I will remember you all. But right now, you must die." A trace of sorrow flashed in his eyes. He was truly heartbroken by this internal conflict. But his steps remained firm. On the command center side, all the staff were sweating profusely. "Commander Chu, they've reached this floor. How do we defend? They are just technical staff. If the cycle squad kills their way here, they can only wait for death." Lan Xincheng frantically ran up to Chu Jung. Commander Chu, let's go quickly. But Chu Jung only said calmly, do you think we can really escape? Even sitting in a helicopter, we would be shot down by the Cycle Squad. Modern weapons and equipment were not as effective as people thought against powerful mutants. Moreover, at this moment, the building was enveloped by Guman's barrier. No one could escape. Sun Luxuan slowly walked up to him, bowed, and said, Commander Chu, let me go there. Shu Xiong nodded. Go. Sun Luxuan smiled slightly at the corner of his mouth. Speaking of which, it's been a long time since I've taken action. These old bones get stiff if they don't work for too long. He didn't look very tall, even somewhat thin, but no one dared to underestimate this powerful individual. Just seeing that he could serve as Chu Zheng's continuous close bodyguard was enough to say it all. Sun Luxuan turned and walked out of the command room. A flash of white light appeared. He conveniently closed the door of the command room. At this moment, the corridor was drenched in blood. The last defense squad here had been completely slaughtered. Dismembered bodies lay everywhere. Fresh blood splattered all over the walls and ceiling. Ji Yushin held the massive greatsword in his hand. Blood blossoms were splattered on his snow-white skin, making him look like a demon who had stepped out of hell. When they saw Sun Luxuan, everyone stopped. They knew Sun Luxuan. Gao Changkong smiled as he looked at him. Even you have made a move. Does this mean this is Chu Zheng's final defense line? Sun Luxuan looked coldly at Gao Changkong. Gao Changkong, I didn't expect you to betray us. The consequence of what you've done is only self-destruction. How can you not understand such a simple truth? Betraying the Jiangnan division is betraying Huasi Nation. Then the only consequence is death. Gao Changkong heard this, and the corner of his mouth lifted slightly. He mockingly asked in return, since when have those people on high, who view the lives of ordinary citizens like grass, been able to represent everyone? It's useless to talk too much. Today, all of you rebels will die here. Sun Luxuan's hands naturally dropped. The space behind him suddenly warped. Extreme darkness enveloped everything behind him. From his two sleeves, 2 streams of black smoke sprayed out, covering the area behind it. Looking closely, it wasn't smoke but countless black threads. They emitted a faint light, carrying a terrifying, soul-stealing horror. Facing Chu Zheng's close bodyguard, Gao Changkong didn't dare to underestimate him, but he didn't intend to fight himself. Instead, his deputy leader, Ji Yushin, stepped forward. Mr. Sun, please allow me to experience your skill. Sun Luxuan looked at him coldly. You? Even if I'm nothing special, I'm not someone a deputy can bother with. Do you want to use your life to slow me down? Gao Changkong smiled and stepped forward, placing a hand on Ji Yushin's shoulder. Mr. Sun, never underestimate him. It's possible he might bring you some surprises. You probably know my ability is the cycle of dying breath rebirth. Therefore, I can use the ability within the cycle to perform multiple deductions. Gao Changkong narrowed his eyes and smiled, asking, guess how long I've been preparing for today? A hint of caution flashed in Sun Luxuan's eyes. What do you want to say? Gao Changkong continued. Of course I know there's a person like you beside Chu Zheng. That's why I've deduced it again and again. Fighting you again and again in simulation. I've long understood your abilities. He looked at Ji Yushin beside him with a touch of pride. He is the person I specifically prepared for you. Sun Luxuan's heart sank. Of course, he knew what Gao Changkong's ability was. If such a person spent a lot of time and effort planning something, no one could defend against it, because he had countless opportunities to fail and start over. But his opponent only had one chance. If they lost, they would lose their life for real. Do you really believe you can defeat me this way? Sun Luxuan wasn't flustered by Gao Changkong. As a top powerhouse, mental fortitude was the most basic requirement. No need to defeat you, just need to buy time, Gao Changkong said with a smile. Meanwhile, Ji Yushin had already dragged the massive greatsword and rapidly lunged towards Sun Luxuan. The black threads on Sun Luxuan's hands became even more intense. All right, I want to see if the two of you have the ability to buy time. Ji Yushin struck with a sword. The entire floor erupted with a brilliant blue light. A few seconds later, the blue light disappeared from that area, but both Ji Yushin and Sun Luxuan were gone. Sun Luxuan suddenly felt the space around him change. This was a green space, surrounded only by smooth green. Nothing else could be seen. There were only him and Ji Yushin in this space. Ji Yushin raised the giant sword in his hand, aiming at Sun Luxuan's head. I named this ability Solo. Sounds pretty cool, right? Before you kill me, you can't escape from this space. So, don't even think about interfering with the captain going to kill Chu Zheng. Sun Luxuan's face suddenly became fierce, like a demon. He didn't say another word. Thousands of black threads in the sky surged towards Ji Yushin. It's useless, old man. Ji Yushin laughed loudly, swinging the massive sword quickly in his hand. Deflecting countless black threads, the captain said. In the hundreds of Lunhui rebirth cycle simulations he performed, the best result I achieved was a draw with you. But you have to win, and I only need not to lose. This battle will end. Sun Luxuan roared. Then I will kill you first, and then I will kill Gao Changkong. The black threads in his hands were incredibly tough, each thread a sharp blade that could steal souls. Very quickly, these dense threads filled the space around Ji Yushin. Under the blockade of this skynet, no one could escape the slashes of myriad threads. But Ji Yushin's smile vanished, and he said coldly, "Oh, right. Let me tell you something else. My strength is also captain level. Zhang Yi once speculated that if a person could truly activate infinite cycles, the amount of experience that person possessed would far surpass everyone else. Thus, even if that person was a waste, they would be honed into a powerhouse over the long river of time. Gao Changkong could not only do it himself, but he could also help those around him do it. Ji Yushin was the raw material he discovered. Although his official title was deputy leader, in reality, he already possessed combat strength no weaker than a captain. The Cycle Squad had a total of 2 people with captain-level combat strength. This was the capital they had that allowed them to point their swords at the high levels of Snowstorm City. Sun Luxuan was drawn into the solo domain by Ji Yushin and couldn't appear in the short term. Gao Changkong walked to the large door of the command room. The corner of his mouth slightly curved up. He felt a bit excited. Then he reached out and pushed the door. The tightly shut metal door was easily pushed open by him. Everyone inside looked at him with complex expressions. Among the staff here, there were many admirers of Gao Changkong. They didn't know what attitude to use to face this former hero. Today's traitor, Lan Xincheng, stood in front of Chu Zheng, blocking him. Gao Changkong, do you really want to do such a treacherous thing? Do you know the consequences of this? Gao Changkong ignored Lan Xincheng. He only looked at the staff working in the command center. The corner of his mouth curved into a smile. The same as always. I did it. Everyone looked at each other, not understanding what Gao Changkong meant by that. They looked at each other, but their eyes finally settled on Chu Zheng. At this moment, Chu Zheng was their spiritual support, and also Gao Changkong's target. Gao Changkong continued, I came for Chu Zheng. The others are not related. You can leave now. Otherwise, you might get caught in the crossfire. Lan Xincheng immediately cursed loudly. Don't try to confuse people here. All of us will not yield to a traitor like you. If you want to touch Commander Chu, you have to get past me first. Then he yelled at everyone. Come quickly and protect Commander Chu with me. The people in the room heard this sentence, but not many actually rushed forward. What are you kidding? Most of them were civilian staff. What kind of combat strength did they have? Rushing forward was just seeking death. Seeing that Gao Changkong wasn't killing them, they naturally wanted to preserve their lives. But there were also a few who rushed to the front of Chu Zheng, thinking they might gain something by risking it all. Although doing so was very dangerous, once they succeeded and survived, they would have the opportunity to be heavily favored by Chu Zheng in the future. Lan Xincheng stared at a black-clothed guard and said to him, You, go and take down Gao Changkong. The black-clothed guard looked at him with disbelief. Me, Lan Xincheng became angry, grabbed his collar, and stared at him, asking word by word, Don't you want to die for our great commander? The black-clothed guard was sweating profusely, not knowing how to answer this question, but also not having the courage to truly challenge Gao Changkong. But Chu Zheng's gaze was always directed at Gao Changkong. Gao Changkong, answer me. Why did you betray us? Why did you collude with those damn Nihong wolves to deal with our people? Chu Zheng's voice grew louder, finally sounding like he was yelling at him. He could accept Gao Changkong's betrayal, but colluding with alien races, this was something he absolutely could not tolerate. Gao Changkong sneered. Wolves. They are just my tools. Even if Deng Shentong died in battle and Zhang Yi was defeated, I would eventually kill them myself. It's just that things happened a little unexpectedly, but it won't affect the final outcome. In Gao Changkong's original plan, Deng Shentong absolutely had to die. With Deng Shentong dead, it would logically follow that Gao Changkong would be tasked with suppressing Shu Yue. This way, Gao Changkong could become the person with the highest prestige in Snowstorm City. Then he could gradually approach the center of power. Finally, he just needed to create an accident to kill Chu Zheng and become the new commander of Snowstorm City. Gao Changkong could use his own methods to create a completely new Snowstorm City. But unfortunately, Zhang Yi didn't die. Instead, he eliminated Shu Yue. Thus, Gao Changkong's plan failed, and he could only implement Plan B, taking advantage of Snowstorm City being vulnerable to directly kill Chu Zheng. Chu Zheng looked coldly at Gao Changkong. From the very beginning, everything was orchestrated by you, wasn't it? You were the spy in Snowstorm City. You were the one who leaked the information about our operations, leading to the Heavenly God Squad being surrounded and annihilated. Even the ambush on Zhang Yi by Shu Yue and the Tianlong Ice Pirates was done by you, Gao Changkong said calmly. As expected of Commander Chu, you react quickly. But you've realized a little too late. He looked at the others. Well, do you want them to stay here and be buried with you? I don't like killing innocent people. They are all individuals with outstanding talents. The Jiangnan division will still need them in the future. The person I want to kill is only you. So, he looked at the others. Do you truly want to die together with Chu Zheng? Gao Changkong used a questioning gaze, a gentle smile on his lips. But no one doubted that his words about killing everyone were a joke. The atmosphere in the office became a little strange. Some staff even started trembling, faced with life and death. Some staff finally couldn't bear it anymore. A woman cried and said, I want to leave. I want to go home. Gao Changkong very politely made way. You can go right now. The woman didn't dare to turn back to look at Chu Jung and Lan Xincheng, crying as she ran out, with someone leading the way. Others, driven by the urge to survive, also scrambled towards the door. Chu Jung closed his eyes and waved to the few hesitant subordinates beside him. You all leave. Their target is me. The few people breathed a sigh of relief after receiving Chu Jung's order, then whispered, Commander Chu, take care, and followed the others out of the office. Finally, only Lan Xincheng remained beside Chu Jung. Perhaps it was because he didn't want to escape, but more likely because he was tied to Chu Jung. As Chu Jung's secretary, once Chu Jung died and he was still alive, he would lose everything in Snowstorm City. By then, the newly appointed commander would surely treat him as a deserter. Instead of dying miserably then, it was better to take a risk now. Gao Changkong looked at Chu Jung sitting in his chair, facing him. Now, let me see you off, Commander Chu. Chu Jung looked at Gao Changkong, his face cold, and asked in a deep voice, Can I ask you one question? Why exactly did you betray us? What about the Jiangnan division made you regret it? Here, you had everything. You were respected and admired by tens of thousands of people. What did you gain by betraying us? Gao Changkong's face gradually relaxed. He suddenly burst into laughter. Chu Jung, even now, you still don't know why I want to kill you. So that's how it is. I understand. In your eyes, a small person like me is insignificant, utterly trivial. He laughed loudly, his eyes growing colder. I'll just remind you of one thing. After the apocalypse arrived, my parents also died because of the order you issued. They were both over 60 years old, with no ability to survive in the apocalypse. It was your order that drove them out of Snowstorm City. From that day until now, there hasn't been a moment when I didn't want to kill you and all the high-level leaders of Snowstorm City who enacted that law with you. After hearing what Gao Changkong said, Chu Jung closed his eyes helplessly. So it was because of this, but at that time, doing so was the inevitable choice. We didn't have the ability to support so many people. The entire Jinling City had 15 million permanent residents back then. As the disaster spread, residents of neighboring cities also began flooding into Snowstorm City. Everyone hoped to bring their families into this apocalypse fortress to help them survive. If we didn't have measures to only allow those with higher potential to create value to survive, then the final outcome would be everyone dying together. Chu Jung's tone became firmer. So, your parents also had to be like that. Hearing Chu Jung's explanation, Gao Changkong clapped his hands. Good explanation. Commander Chu is indeed fair and just, worthy of respect. If you truly did that, perhaps I could still sympathize in my heart. But you didn't. Gao Changkong's mouth showed a hint of mockery. Do you dare to say you treated everyone equally? No. You are also almost 60 years old this year and not a mutant. If you weren't in this position, you'd be too old and weak to even do manual labor. In your home, you still have to support your wife and children. Don't they also not need to participate in labor? And many other high-level leaders of Snowstorm City. Are they the same as ordinary citizens? What value did they create to allow themselves and their families to live affluent lives in Snowstorm City? Gao Changkong's voice also rose by a few decibels. Snowstorm City. From District S to District E, those tall city walls are the inherent barrier between social classes. From the beginning, you haven't treated everyone fairly. In your eyes, we in District E are all losers. And now, my dear Commander Chu Jung, you're on the verge of death. And you're still sitting here lecturing me about fairness. Don't you find that very laughable? Gao Changkong looked down at Chu Jung with contempt. He laughed casually, mocking Chu Jung. He spoke the words he had suppressed for half a year, pouring out all the deep-seated resentment and injustice he had accumulated over time. At this moment, he felt incredibly relieved in his heart. Finally, he no longer had to live in constant fear. Chu Jung was criticized by Gao Changkong to the point of speechlessness. After a long while, he slowly said, There are some things you will only understand after experiencing them. Water that is too clear has no fish. Absolute fairness is inherently difficult to achieve. He needed the support of some organizations in Snowstorm City, so he had to grant them special privileges. Gao Changkong took a deep breath, having said everything he had suppressed for so long. His mood was much more relaxed. No one is born high and mighty. For example, right now, your life is in my hands. He had vented his feeling. Now, Chu Jung could die. Gao Changkong raised his hand, aiming at Chu Jung's head. At this moment, what he wanted to do felt like a frenzied battle. He needed to do something with sacred meaning, like killing a god, killing this false god. He would change this world full of lies and deception according to his own will. First, kill Chu Jung, then clear out all the high-level leadership of Snowstorm City, the ones who had held important positions since before the apocalypse. Only by clearing everything and starting over could a new world order be built. This was the greatest meaning of the apocalypse. But just as Gao Changkong was about to strike, he heard a familiar voice. Gao Changkong, you miscalculated. In the darkness within the command room, light flashed. A dazzling white light blinded everyone. A streak of white light, like an opened door, appeared. A tall, Handsome man in silver combat gear with long silver hair stepped out of the light portal. Deng Shentong, who should have died in Jinling City, miraculously appeared between Chu Zheng and Gao Changkong. Not only him, but behind him, one by one, over a dozen powerful mutants in silver armor also slowly walked out, standing behind him. Among them was the deputy leader of the Heavenly God Squad, Bai Chunyu. The other dozen or so mutants were wearing special armor, their faces unclear, but the powerful pressure emanating from them indicated their strength was certainly no weaker than that of the investigation team members. Gao Changkong narrowed his eyes as he looked at Deng Shentong, who had suddenly appeared there. Deng Shentong, long time no see. You're still alive. Deng Shentong's appearance greatly astonished Lan Xincheng, but he noticed that Chu Zheng's expression was calm, clearly indicating he knew about this beforehand. He secretly breathed a sigh of relief, feeling much more at ease. So, Commander Chu had prepared, it seems, the entire incident. Even I was kept in the dark. How could Lan Xincheng know that all of this was planned by Chu Zheng and Deng Shentong after the second failed ambush? They had confirmed there was a spy from Shi Yue within Snowstorm City. If this issue wasn't resolved, they would not only face external pressure but also the possibility of large-scale internal chaos. Therefore, the two discussed and devised a plan. The vulnerability present in Snowstorm City today was also intentionally created by Chu Zheng. The purpose was to lure the rebels out into the open. Chu Zheng sat calmly in his chair, looking at Gao Changkong with a hint of regret. It's a pity that you are the traitor. Cultivating a captain-level mutant is extremely difficult. This is related to innate talent, even with sufficient resources. If the right vessel cannot be found, it's difficult to cultivate one. Gao Changkong's betrayal, regardless of whether this battle succeeds or fails, is a huge loss for Snowstorm City. Things have reached this point. More words are useless, Gao Changkong said calmly. Deng Shentong looked at Gao Changkong in front of him. I've wanted to fight you for a long time. Last time, you used Shi Yue to ambush me. This time, you didn't expect me to be alive. Did you? This time, it's my turn to kill you. Gao Changkong smiled. He asked Deng Shentong in return, do you still remember what my ability is? Deng Shentong narrowed his eyes and smiled. Cycle of dying breath rebirth. But that's a fake. You fundamentally did not truthfully report your ability to the organization. You concealed your true ability, dying and being reborn. It's all false. No one can easily manipulate the cycle of life and death like that. You can't do it. Even higher-level Epsilon couldn't do it, because what's being reversed is not personal space-time, but the space-time of the entire universe. This is the realm of gods, not people. Therefore, you have deceived everyone. I also don't believe that after being killed by me, you can be reborn and return. I have studied you, including all your mission data. I think I know what your true ability is. Deng Shentong smiled brilliantly, like a flower blooming.